Ok, ok. Olá a todos vocês que nos acompanham, nos assistem, nos ouvem aqui no nosso podcast Papo de Pombo. Estamos começando aqui mais um episódio hoje e temos hoje nossa terceira convidada internacional, ou seja, a terceira vez que vocês vão me ver passando vergonha tentando falar inglês. E a nossa convidada de hoje é a cantora e compositora Jasmine Rodgers, que tem a sua carreira se inicia em uma banda de indie rock chamada Boa, que, com o perdão do trocadilho, é de fato muito boa, ou ouçam depois, vou deixar o link do Spotify aqui na descrição. Depois ela passou a fazer carreira solo, faz carreira solo até então. Para a galera que gosta de assistir anime, vai reconhecer a voz dela, porque a abertura do anime Serial Experiments Lain é uma música composta por ela no final da década de 90. E hoje nós vamos conversar um pouco aqui sobre a carreira musical dela, o que ela anda fazendo e tudo mais. Então é isso, é o vídeo, para quem está no Spotify, vai ficar meio que não sabe inglês, vai ter que apelar para as legendas automáticas do YouTube, que não são lá muito boas, mas é o que tem para hoje. Então é isso aí. Então vamos lá, flipando para o inglês agora e tentando não passar muita vergonha. So, okay, Jasmine, first of all, thank you so much for spending a little time here with us. I'm a big fan of you, and I hope that will be a great chat. So, thank you so much. So, if you wanted to introduce herself.
Yes, so my name is Jasmine Rodgers and I am a singer and a songwriter, and I am the front woman for a band called Boa in the UK, and that's pretty much all you need to know, really.
All right, so my first question for you is when and how you starting music?
I started music when I was really little. I really enjoyed it, and I don't know where the actual camera is on this iPad, because I just shoved it straight down. So if I look everywhere around here, that's because I can't figure out where. So I started singing to begin with, and then as I got to about 4 or 5, I started playing the piano. And then as I got a little bit older, I started to play the guitar. And those are pretty much my main instruments, but I do play the ukulele, and I used to learn the flute for about 5 minutes. And I got into music because I was surrounded by, it was a very musical family, and I was surrounded by music all the time. Mm. And it was kind of a really lovely way to express myself. And of dancing to it when I was tiny, and just slowly but surely you start singing along to your favorite music, and and I started songwriting and actually writing poetry and stories a lot when I was little, and then it grew into lyrics, and to this day I still really enjoy literature and reading and listening to podcasts and audiobooks possibly more than music, because I like the stories.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And when you do start to composing?
I wrote a song called The Creation of Life about a polar bear when I was about
Poetic.
5 or 6. And I used to sing it really with passion and feeling.
Mm-hmm. All right. Started composing the 5-6 years. Mm-hmm. Great.
But I think children are generally very creative anyway, no?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that's really that unusual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. And the first experience of you in a band was with Boa, right?
With Boa, yeah.
And how was your entry in Boa? You founded the band or not? The band?
No, I think my brother did, actually, with his friends, with a guy called Ed, who was the original drummer. And Ed brought in Alex, who was a neighborhood friend of his, and Paul, who was at university with him, and then Alex brought in Ben, and I kept singing in the house. They were rehearsing, and they invited me to sing with them, and that's how it kind of started, really. Yeah.
Right. Keep going.
Because I was maybe 5 or 6 years younger than the rest of the band, so I was maybe 15, 16 when I started.
And the beginning of the band is when? Which year? I don't know exactly.
I don't know. I think probably just to completely age myself, but probably early mid-90s. I think really long time ago. You know, before television or aeroplanes. Or...
All right. So, in 1998 was released the Serial Experiments Lain anime, and from that I knew Boa and you, and all right. So one song of Boa Duvet, I believe that's the correct pronunciation, was the opening for this anime. How did it happen?
So our record label was a Japanese record label called Polystar, and one of the guys working there, Ricky, he's a really lovely guy. It was basically a friend of his, and they connected. They heard the song and they thought that would work really, really well because they were already in development of the anime. So they got that together, and that's how that developed. It's kind of crazy, but it's that simple. And it can just show how strange life can be, that you can just, these things can go together.
The song already recorded when the anime was released?
Was it recorded at the state of the album? I don't know, actually. I can't remember. Probably. And if it wasn't, then they probably had the demo. I don't quite remember,
All right. So
honestly, I remember him saying, "Oh, you know, there's this thing and there's this thing," and I was like, "Oh, okay, no." Everything in life, you know, spins round, and
Right. So I wanted to talk a little about Duvet because it's one of my favorite songs ever. I don't know, for me, it's top 5 of the best songs ever made. So I wanted to ask you, how was the inspiration and the processing of composing and recording the song?
I think it's quite an interesting song from the perspective of a band member, because we were 6 members in this band, which is quite a lot. And everybody with really strong characters, strong opinion, and every single note in the band was fought for, you know. So very considered. And it was the one song which really gave everybody space to play, I think, quite nicely. And I remember that when we started doing the demo for it, even then it was very strong, very strongly, you know, already done. And the words for me were that sometimes when I don't want to prescribe how anybody else interprets the lyrics, but for me it was at the time that I just felt like when things weren't kind of going the way I wanted them to, I just can't breathe, you know. And it was kind of asking for that help to breathe. And I remember coming home really late at night, and I was still living with my mother. I can't remember how old I was, but I remember just writing the lyrics, and the sun was rising and I was writing the lyrics. And then I decided to call the song Duvet, because, you know, when you're in a relationship and it's not going quite as well, or maybe they can be a bit selfish, or you can be a bit selfish, and I don't know if you have a duvet in Brazil, or whether you call it a comforter, or a blanket over the bed when you're in a when you're in a relationship and you start and you don't care if they're cold anymore. Either that means you're in a really solid relationship or you're terrible for each other. I'm not sure what it means, but you know, it was just something about this feeling warm and safe and, you know, being cared for. Yeah.
And it's a very interesting lyrics and fits exactly with the anime, the vibe of anime. I don't know if you watch it, Serial Experiments Lain, and I don't know.
I have a really terrible admission for that. When we were first starting Boa, we had no money, none. And they sent us a box set of the DVDs with no DVDs.
What?
And we couldn't afford it. So we couldn't watch it. And I still haven't. I have meant to watch it and I haven't watched it. Where can I watch it? But it's true, that is, so I watched maybe one or two because there was one DVD in it. So it's like 1 or 2 episodes and that was it. So we had to do all of these panels to talk about it and everything like that. And we were like, it's terrible. So I haven't watched it and I apologize, but I haven't.
I watched it, Serial Experiments Lain 3 times, so I can't understand what they wanted to say. It's so,
really?
It's so complex. It's I don't know. I have some thoughts, but I have to try more times.
I think it's one of these really interesting ones where, because it was the same time I remember as Ghost in the Shell and that kind of thing. And it's kind of
it's a cyberpunk history.
Yeah, exactly. The sort of beginning of internet really and our lives and the internet. And none of us could really, well, I'm sure we did predict, and they did predict how we became absolutely immersed in this world, which to us seems absolutely normal now, but it was really strange then.
Yes.
And when I think about how creative I was then, is very different to the way I'm creative now. And the use of digital is just so different. And it's just, we live and breathe it now, you know, we're all of us are underwater in it, really. So,
right. And the song was recorded in UK, right? This demo. All right. UK and anime in Japan too. Really cool. When I discovered that the band, my first thought was the band was Japanese. I looked at it because anime in general are Japanese bands that do the opening and the ending, right? So first I think a little strange that the music was in English and not in Japanese. Then I tried, this band is Japanese, so it's sing in English. So I will research a little about them. Oh no, that in English. Oh, that's nice. That's different than the general. So it's so cool. It's so cool. So before this anime, this recording the Duvet, how was the process to do the first album? The first album was Twilight, right, in 2001.
Yeah. So we called it The Race of 1,000 Camels, and it was released in Japan with Polystar, and slightly different, actually, different songs I think on there. And yeah, we recorded it in this really old house, completely haunted, somewhere in Wales. It was an old farmhouse. It's quite scary at night. And we stayed there for a month, and there was lots of shenanigans, lots of drinking, lots of good times. And we got it all done then. It was good fun.
I love that album. I think that many songs that are very great, many of songs. And now I will let Raquel to speak a little.
Okay.
Yeah, like for someone who is not very familiar with your work, what is your main inspiration?
I think the Boa stuff was probably relationships and also books. So at the time I remember reading quite a lot of quite a lot of gothic
Okay.
novels and vampires.
Uh-huh.
So things like, so honestly, Twilight was before the films Twilight, but I was reading, you know, Anne Rice, Angela Carter, those kinds of writers, and Isabel Allende, and I don't know who I was reading, but everything I was reading. And then now when I write music, it's more about probably nature. And the music that I'm working on now, I'm more inspired because of the lockdown. Some of the things that I could only do was walking in forests, really. And I mean, you get tired of watching screens all day. So walking in nature and walking by the River Thames and just seeing the river is always changing, and the sort of deep, dark water, and how it's kind of muddy and all these things washing up on the shore. And just for me, these last few years, that's been absolutely the inspiration. Yeah.
Perfect. And how about musical inspirations? Do you have any role model or something?
I would say that I've been fortunate enough to play with a lot of musicians. So more now than before, I'm inspired by the live musicians that I perform with, than just my Spotify playlist, you know, which I still like get lost in, of course. But yeah, I think I'm more enthused when I think because for, you know, a year I haven't been able to see live music. Seeing live music now has been incredible. And playing live music now has been incredible. And so the other day I played with Molly Marriott and Joe Harmon and all these like blues and rock musicians and stuff for a John Lennon benefit concert, and just to hear them singing just made me go it's so nice. So yeah, and I mean, listening to Emma Ruth Rendell, her new album's just come out, it's great. So yeah.
Right. The sound of the musics of Boa and your musics in solo career are so unique. I think Boa is different from, I don't know, a lot of bands that I know, even in the same style. How do you create this type of unique song for the band?
Lots of arguments.
Lots of?
Lots of arguing. No. Well,
fighting and
loads of fighting. No, loads of different.
I'm kidding.
Loads of different influences. So, for instance, Paul, who sadly has died a few years ago, but his influence, he was very, very into classical music, into people that, you know, he would rewrite Stravinsky and kind of like, dismantle it and put it back together again to understand the music. So he was very much into kind of the sort of arrangement of things. And I mean, if you hear in Boa's music, the string arrangements are really beautiful, I think.
Yes.
And Alex, as a bassist, he's obviously, everyone's into all different kinds of music, but in terms of the influence, Alex was more interested in Coil and Black Flag and kind of like heavy stuff. He's going to laugh at me and say, no, I'm not. And at the time, I was very much into PJ Harvey and Fugazi, and also into Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and kind of, you know, other influences of music as well. And my brother was interested in more classic rock and blues. And Lee again was into rock and blues kind of drumming, and Ben was kind of into jazz funk and that kind of thing. So everybody was really, really into these different things, and my interest in singing was also very, like I said, into sort of with Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan's kind of singing, that kind of quarter note scales. You know, he was a Pakistani Qawwali singer. And but I was also really interested in folk music, so Irish folk and all of that kind of style of cadence and things, and so it all got kind of pushed together in this kind of lovely way. And I think, I suppose with my own music now, I'm still interested in that, and I still love that sort of punk sort of undercurrent, that punk rock kind of energy behind things, but it kind of laid back kind of version of it. So I find it hard to describe my genre, and I would say it's kind of acoustic because that's the easiest way, but it's generally not. And my last album was probably more Americana and country based. But this time, the next music, I think, is going to have a lot more string arrangements in it. It's going to be a lot broader. I don't really know where it's going. I'm writing it at the moment. So.
Oh, right. I think the style of Bo is so, and you and your in solo career is so unique that I really can't describe exactly what are you doing. So it's great. So. And when I recommend it to my friends, I just say, just listen, and it's awesome. Just listen, believe in me. I'm not lying.
That's how it happened with me.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yes,
because I'm a heavy metal fan, but I also like a little bit of folk music and music like Enya and Lorena. So he just suggested me to listen to your songs, and I was, oh, that's really good. It's very relaxing.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I mean, I used to listen to Clanad a lot. I think, wasn't Enya in Clanad? I think a long time ago. Check it out. It's kind of like really calm and
it's good. So before we talk about the second album, the Get There, in the 2005, between these albums, how was the agenda of the band and shows and the reception of the fans and all of that stuff?
It was an interesting one. If I look back now as a live music performer now, it was very different. We didn't actually perform that often. Whereas if I don't perform for a month, I get twitchy and I'm like, why haven't I performed? I love performing, but we would always, we were very perfectionist. So there were times when we would rehearse for hours and hours and hours, but we wouldn't do any gigs. We just write and create, and everything was very, very focused to make the music sound as good as it could, which I think is its strength. And it meant that when me and Lee and Alex did the 20th anniversary of Duvet a couple of years back, we didn't really have to rehearse because we remembered it. But we hadn't played it in years, but we can still play it all. Except when I was doing the live streams last year, I had to ring Alex, ring Steve. how do I play this song? I can't remember. But I remember the words obviously and everything. So I think we just really practiced. That was our agenda, was just to create. Honestly, we were very pure in that way. Absolutely. Very not good business people. I mean, bands now, they tour. We were just like, right. So.
And I believe after that time of writing, Get There's born, and the second album. And the inspirations and the instrumentality, you kept as the same inspiration of the first album or don't?
No, it changed a lot. Ben left the band. I mean, band members got married, had kids, so Ben and Paul both left the band, and then we carried on. So obviously the sound had to change because obviously Paul's, mainly Paul's addition was so strong, so it did change a lot. But then Lee actually is really good with string arrangements too, so he had that element to him, and he produced and mixed. He produced Get There, co-produced it with Kevin Wood. So well, we all did, but he did a lot of the engineering and part of the mixing and things like that. So the whole experience was very much different, because what we found in the first album was we really had an idea of how we wanted it to sound. We really, really did. And quite often the producers that we were working with, bless them, we didn't really want to hear their opinion. we were so strong. But they were actually incredible producers. Neil Walsh is amazing, and Darren Allison, they're fantastic. But I think we were difficult to work with because we should have produced ourselves. We knew what we wanted. We really just, and then the second album, then we kind of really produced ourselves. So we absolutely knew, I didn't have to tell Lee how I wanted my vocals to sound. He understood exactly how I wanted. And I remember there was one time with a song called A Girl that when I wrote the guitar line for it and the lyrics for it, Alex came in and he straight away put the bass line on, which is quite a complex bass line. And it was absolutely completely what I wanted, completely. So that was really exciting to have this kind of really wonderful relationship with creative people, to inspire each other.
And the reception of the second album was the same of the first. I love the both.
It was really good. But but we did it independently. So obviously we didn't have the push of Polystar Records. Well, we didn't have the push of an anime to go with it. So it was very, very different. And I think in the UK at the time, it was interesting to see that the way that our music was received really by our friends down the pub. It was very different to how it was received internationally. We're a very international sounding band. And I think that's because we had so many different influences as well. Yeah. So me and my brother are both half Japanese, and then Ben was half Chinese. And, so we all had different influences coming in. Lee's father is also a successful drummer, musician. Everybody has these different kind of input coming in that made us kind of look a bit bigger at things, maybe, or bring in bigger influences to a lot of the bands that we were listening to at the time. So it's really interesting, and it's really nice to see how, regardless of what the mainstream is, people found Boa anyway. And that's been beautiful. And I mean, I'm very fortunate that I get messages pretty much every day saying, I love the band, and and they're from everywhere. Lots of different countries, and it's really, really nice.
Yes, the band deserves the work of so awesome. So with Boa, you just recorded these 2 albums, right? 3 now or 2, I don't know. Race 1,000 Camels, Twilight, and Get There, if you're England. Right. And after that, today the band is I don't know how to say that, doesn't exist anymore, or don't still exist, so it's put to sleep.
It's asleep, I think it would be fair to say. I mean, life took over, really, because we weren't getting the support that we wanted from the labels, and I mean, you have to pay rent. So we just kind of started to do different things. And I started to find an interest, pick up my interest in zoology. So I retrained and I did a zoology degree and started to kind of focus on different things. But then about 10, 11 years ago, I started writing again. And I think the stress really from the previous record labels and all of that kind of thing, it was very stressful because we'd really put our heart into Boa, and it was difficult to work with these labels, especially when they're in another country. So we had Polystar, and then we had Pioneer in the United States, and I think if we had done the band now, with the way that Spotify is and all of the international, it would be very, very different. But you know, we were at the beginning.
The streaming helps a lot.
Yeah, in some ways. But what was really interesting as well is that in some ways, because actually we had a huge advance, so the recording is beautifully done because we had the money to make incredible recording with a string quartet in a beautiful studio and everything really well done. So the quality, you can hear that. But I think, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing to think how international the whole world has become because of the change in that time. We didn't really have it then. So we kind of just stopped, you know, life kind of took over and we started doing other things and we needed to just take a break. And then I started to write again after I did my degree. And because I mean, I've been doing boa since I was 15, 16. I hadn't had any time to be a proper student or do all the things that students do or whatever. And I still didn't do anything. I really didn't. So anyway.
You have time.
Yeah, I still have time. Yeah, so in the end, then I started to write again. And now the world is different. So now I can do online streaming and I can do, you know, different things and have fun. And I can collaborate with different musicians and internationally. And, you know, it's good. It's interesting.
Right. And you say that you were 10 years apart the music?
No, it was 5 years. And then 10 years ago, then I started to read.
All right.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Or 11.
So you released your first solo album in 2016, I remember. And your first album, I heard it sometimes in the last few days, and have a little, how do I say that? A little flavor of boa in them. I believe that your style remains unique. Sorry, remains unique for that time and now. So, and your inspirations for this album, you use some of the time that you don't are play and writing. You, I don't know, you express some of the feelings in this new album, or don't?
Sorry, what was the question?
Basically, your inspirations and feelings in this solo album.
Well, I wrote, before that one, I did actually do an EP, which Alex from Boa played the bass in it. And I think that was probably more of a bridge between everything. And those were songs I'd written that I just hadn't really sat with Boa to do, but they were kind of written around that time. And then the album was kind of influenced by the planet, the blood red sun. It was all about kind of sort of science and technology, and kind of, there was one bit where we had the sounds of NASA. I don't know if you've heard that one, Physics Man, but they've got the recording. They've basically kind of made this kind of sound of what Earth sounds like, whatever different planets sound like. So one of the songs on there, Milky Way, I borrowed the sound, I think, of Earth to go underneath it. And it's just, everything is about looking at the perspective of, like, if the moon and the stars and the planets were looking at me, she said arrogantly, but like this kind of notion that we're tiny, you know, in this massive universe, and just kind of all of the things that I get worried about and all the things that drive me nuts, are they that important? But actually they are important, because I'm tiny and so is my world, but I live in that world, and that's relevant too. So it's this kind of strange small and large of our reality, and I haven't got an answer. I don't actually know. So yeah.
Right. Raquel?
No, I just say that it depends on the referential, right?
It depends on
So,
the
like you
sorry.
said, and the reference. So if you're comparing yourself, you're living in this world. If you're putting yourself with the world, you feel yourself big, but when you compare to the distance, you feel yourself really small, right? And yeah, interesting.
It's sometimes helpful and sometimes it's not. But most of the time I think it's helpful because it gives you a sense of distance to these things, and you sort of realize, okay, tomorrow is a different day. Okay, I can get through whatever this thing is. It's hard at the moment, and I don't know really what it's like in Brazil at the moment with the pandemic, but I know that here we're kind of coming out of the lockdown.
Here there's rise and lows.
Yeah, it remained in heights for a long time, and now you're finally going back to a low.
Yeah. And Brazil is a very big country, so different regions are suffering the different ways. So it's hard to generalize all the country.
Yeah, I would imagine. I would, absolutely. But it's also this idea of like initially the novelty of it. You know, this idea, oh, okay, we can cope. It's okay. It's only going to be for a few months, and then actually it's going on and on and on and on. And now people are like, you know, you feel bad at first feeling fed up with it, but then in the end, the truth is that you are fed up with it. And when is this ever going to go back to normal? And all of these things. And I mean, obviously I wrote that album before any of this, but it's still relevant, I think.
Yes.
And a lot of my anxieties then were before Brexit. So I wrote this song called Let It Burn, and the lyrics came from nowhere. I don't know where the lyrics came from, but when I listen to it now, it makes absolute sense to me. And I find that quite strange, you know, when you have that experience, when maybe this other side of you could see what was happening, what was coming, or could at least was just absorbing things. And that's what came out, and you sort of think, oh, that's weird. Another one was the song Icicles that I wrote, and the idea of it was about nature, and in my mind I see this kind of this landscape with this sort of forest and this river and everything like that. And after I wrote it, I happened to go to Colombia, and where I was exactly how I imagined it. And that was a really strange feeling. It was like
strange deja vu.
Yeah.
I have to come to Brazil someday.
Oh
yeah,
my
that's
goodness.
what I was going to ask. Have you ever been here?
No, but I would love to go.
Raquel here once lived in the UK for a year.
Did you?
Yeah, Brighton. Yeah.
Oh, lovely. Okay, cool.
Yeah, awesome experience.
It's beautiful down there.
It's super beautiful. Yeah, especially summer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And whereabouts in Brazil are you guys? Are you in the same region or?
No, I'm from Rio, and Wilder is from many places, right?
Now I'm living in São Paulo. I don't know, the concrete forest that is called São Paulo. But you have to come here someday. It's very good. It's very beautiful.
You know, when in Japan, every New Year, they have this thing where they celebrate the New Year, and they go to each different region, and they have the dong with a bell, and then but they always go to Brazil, and because there's a Japanese, you know, Brazilian sort of diaspora there. Always in Brazil, everyone looks like they're having a really great time.
Everything is motive to a Brazilian making a party.
It's wonderful. So like whenever I was a little girl and I could see Brazil, I'd be like, oh yeah, Brazil.
We like a party very much. So
do the Japanese, to be fair.
Right. And Jasmine, your next plans for, I don't know, composing, releasing new songs, new album, what are in your mind?
So, well, I released two. So I released The Tempest, which I released last September.
I heard.
September last month. And
great song.
That was an old song. And the only reason why I released it was because I played it during the live streams in 2020. And people kept saying, hey, that's a really positive song. And
I watched some of your live streams were in Facebook, right?
Yeah.
I watched some of them. I think I don't watch all of them, but some of them I watched. And when I am watching, I always was thinking that the next song was the bass. So we will play the bass. So I how do I say that? And sometimes I don't receive the song, but the song that you play all the times are amazing. So sorry, I interrupted you.
No. I just well, what I realized when I listened back was because at the time I was living on my own in the countryside and I hadn't seen anyone. So for me, those live streams were actually really, really important, and they kept me going quite well. So I was actually, you think you're doing something nice, but actually it's nice for you as well. And I got to meet a lot of the people in a different way than before. But I realized that I talk too much. So I stopped. Because as well, the Wi-Fi was so bad where I was living that sometimes, it was pointless. And other times the camera was upside down and it wouldn't go round, and it was just, Raquel, as an engineer, you would have been destroyed by this. So I played the song The Tempest, and the lyrics were, it will be over soon. And people found that useful. And especially because I think so many people during the pandemic and the lockdown and being stuck in relationships, maybe they weren't happy and it made them worse or it made them better, I don't know. But so many people I know have either split up with someone or they've had a baby with someone. There's like kind of no in between. I released that song, and I released a song called Flies, which I released last year, which is very dark, and it's about mortality, and it was inspired by a fly being stuck in the London Underground in the tube, stuck in between these windows that don't open.
Wow.
So this poor little creature's whole lifespan, its whole life cycle was just in this window. And it just kind of made me feel like, wow, are we flies? And I was feeling quite, melancholy. I'm working on an album basically. And so hopefully going to be released next year. And I'm writing it at the moment. And the themes I'm looking at, I don't know, I'm kind of trying to explore them quite a lot. And this whole thing, Boa's song Duvet went viral on TikTok, which has been really exciting to see that happen. And really strange, but really kind of lovely. And it's just kind of brought Boa back into the focus and made me think about that. And, obviously with the guys reconnecting and chatting a lot about things. And so next year will be quite exciting to see what happens. Just watch that space, because I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm also working with a friend of mine who lives in Italy, and he's a sound artist, and we've been doing collaboration, and we released a song earlier this year as well. called To Wake Up, and him, Roberto Pugliese, and also Fabrizio Sotti, and we did this kind of collaboration. And then I did a collaboration as well with some friends of mine up in Scotland is a much more traditional folk kind of vibe. So I've just been reaching out and kind of just exploring just music in general. Mm-hmm. One thing for me with the pandemic is it's made me really look at music again in a, my God, I need it way. I don't know if you feel the same. You know?
I think music
definitely.
is essential.
It's essential.
I think.
Yeah.
It represents our feelings somehow, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it says it better than we can.
How?
As you say, Raquel, sometimes, you know, a song can say a feeling better than our words can.
Yeah, words,
right.
Exactly.
So great. Raquel, you have some questions for Jasmine?
No, I think I'm good for now. I'm definitely going to explore her albums more, because I just heard 1 or 2 or 3 songs. But as I said before, they're really nice. They made me feel more calm. And especially nowadays when we are always on a rush and we are feeling stressed for everything, for the pandemics and its results. And we are very insecure about the future. So it's really good to stop and listen to your music to calm down.
Thank you. That's cool.
I have one more question.
Okay.
You said about I'm doing a collab with them. So is the I don't know, third quest that I will say that question, but let's go. I said earlier that I try to play bass. So I do some things here, some things that. And I wanted to, and Rachel here sings too, and I want to ask you that in someday in the future, I don't know when, you'll sing a song with us.
Yeah, sure. Let's hear it. Sounds good.
Yeah. So, and I know that you are now busy with your album and other collaborations. So, in the future, when you are more relaxed, so we can, I don't know, if you want it, of course.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. So in the future, I will annoy you with this again. So Jasmine, I think that is it. I think I'm very happy to talk with you. I think it was a great chat. And if you wanted to say something, your final considerations, I don't know, be free.
Well, sending you both loads of love in beautiful Brazil, and one day I would love to come and yes, please. And to play as well, and to play live in Brazil would be amazing, and just to see the nature there. As we know, it's literally one of the most important areas. But yes, and I can imagine that for everyone it's quite a strange time, but we'll get through it somehow. I hope. Yeah. And thank you for interviewing me. Yeah. Thank you for listening as well to the music. So keep listening to whatever music you enjoy. It keeps you sane. That's the main thing.
Right. And again, thanks so much for your time to spend a little time here with us today. And sorry about any annoying about the messages in the Instagram.
No, so I'm sorry that I got the time wrong. My poor mom.
It happens.
So can you say happy birthday in Portuguese for my mom, please?
Oh, right. In Portuguese is Feliz Aniversário.
Parabéns.
Parabéns.
Feliz
Congratulations.
She can hear you.
Oh,
How was their name?
Machi.
Machi.
Mate.
So, Machi, feliz aniversário para você.
Parabéns, felicidades.
Felicidades.
She can hear you.
Yeah, right. She can understand?
Yes. She
Ah,
can
great.
Oh, great.
She's not going to come and say hi, by the way.
All right.
All right,
So,
take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for the chat, and I don't know, maybe in the future we chat again. If one
Okay.
day, if I come to the UK, I wanted to see one of your live presentations.
Oh, I would love that. I'm hoping that next year will be interesting. We'll see what happens with the shows. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. E para você que nos ouviu, nos acompanhou, que é essa conversa, me viu passando vergonha novamente, deixa aqui aquele seu likezinho bombado, se você gostou do vídeo, compartilha com os amigos aí, escuta as musiquinhas delas, são muito boas, realmente são muito boas. E é isso aí, galera. Semana que vem tem mais.